Sorry, I need to wake up. This isn't alcohol. I wish it was. So yeah, Plane is one of those movies that... that's not even a good way to start it. So Plane is a new movie, and it's a movie. Like, Plane is... Positives first, or at least positives that I could find with this. I really thought the first, 15 minutes to 20 minutes of this movie were actually really tense. And I do like Gerard Butler. He does a good job in those types of just basic, average action film role. And I say average, not in a condescending sense. I just mean that a lot of depth to his character, but you get enough backstory with him where you go, all right, this guy, he's intriguing enough where I can follow him along for this movie. Mike Colter, I think he is also really nice. I think he's a good companion piece to Gerard Butler in this movie, and I do really wish this film did more with him and with both of them and their dynamic. It kind of sets up for that and then doesn't really deliver on it, but again, I'm getting ahead of myself. Positives first. Like I said, the first act of this movie for the most part is very tense, and I do think they do a good job at selling you on the horror of the situation going on with our characters. You see this from the trailer. They end up in a plane crash, and Gerard Butler's a pilot. He's flying the plane. They end up crashing on an island, and then they have to find their way out. And that's essentially where the movie starts. And I think the movie does a good job at selling you on the horror and the terror of that situation. I thought it did a good job at least getting me engaged to start. That's what I liked about it. What did you like about it?
Obviously, your first two main characters, I like it even though they're not quite the bromance. The action's really good in certain scenes. It's very basic. I mean, this movie does a lot of basic things that a 90s movie would do.
Yeah.
There is one scene that I really do like. It's just a one-shot take, and I thought that was really good, but that was about it for my likes, honestly. This movie is very plain.
Yeah. Honestly, one thing I'm so tired of in films is the crisis center. I'm so tired of this, and I don't know if I'm the only one, but I'm tired of the crisis center trope where we have to cut to a room full of people. It's a bunch of people in a room looking at computer screens and basically re-explaining stuff we're already seeing established visually, so there's no point in having scenes like that. The Bourne trilogy, for example, when you're cutting back to the rooms full of people that are trying to track down Jason Bourne, I think it's done really well and it's well handled because it's using that to build the suspense of the movie, and they're kind of that antagonistic threat going against Jason Bourne, so it propels the plot forward. And this example is kind of a weak example of how crisis rooms and crisis centers are rather handled, where each scene with it is literally just re-explaining stuff we are seeing and stuff we have already learned as an audience. It's really, it kind of irritated me to a point because I got tired of having to just relearn everything. There's one scene where they discover a certain thing about our antagonist of the movie, and then the very next scene, the conference room is just telling us that again. And it kind of feels like padding to make the movie longer. The movie's already short, but it could have been even shorter. The pacing somehow is still false in that sense. I didn't think this movie had a good sense of pacing. I didn't really think it had a juggle of balancing points of tension.
It's so weird. It just feels like certain things happen way too fast, where as a viewer, don't have that much time to digest it or feel the intensity of that situation. We just kind of go from point to point to point pretty quickly. Pacing is very fast, where we move point to point very quickly, where the intensity of the situation is just not quite there. Things happen a little bit too easy, in my opinion. Don't have enough time to digest our main antagonist. Our main antagonist is quite just there. We could have had a really good moments with him, like a Voss situation, but that was just not there at all, and I'm quite disappointed. He was just there. Like our main antagonists they just exist for the sake of plot.
Yeah, no, that's the perfect way to describe it. Is they quite just exist. There's nothing more to them. I felt the villains were very flat in this movie. I'm really glad you brought up Voss, and I'm so glad we're on the wavelength there, because Voss is, if you ever played Far Cry 3, it's a game where you get trapped on an island and you have to essentially fight your way to survive your way out. What makes that game really interesting is that you have an antagonist in Voss. He's the villain of the story. He's not even the main villain, but he's a great point of tension because of what the performance sells you. The actor for Voss in that game does a great job at selling you on an antagonist that is threatening, so you feel like you're trapped on this island with someone, like an adversary. So it's not just the situation that's the villain, it's also the person. And I thought this movie could have benefited from something like that, where you have a villain or a face that is kind of the embodiment of what Gerard Butler has to fight. That way it just makes it a little more interesting, because as it stands, I'm just so bored with the villain in this movie. There's not much to him, and I get it. It's the entity, it's the soldiers in the environment that's more the antagonist, but I just need something to latch onto to get me more engaged, and if the movie didn't engage me, it just didn't in that sense. This was just one of those cases where I got taken out of the movie because of how uninteresting the villain was, and I thought they could have done more with that. Honestly, if you cut out the conference room scenes and dedicated that time to developing an antagonist, or maybe developing more tension on the island, you would feel that tension. You don't really actually have time to feel the tension in this movie after the plane crash, or at least I didn't, personally. I shouldn't say you. I'm saying you. That's one of those things I don't like saying you to the audience. It feels like I'm saying, like, you guys have to agree with me. That's not the case, and I'm just going on my tangent. And this movie frustrated me more than I expected it to. Now I'm talking about it. But just how I perceived the film, I never got personally able to be that invested in the tension of the film. There was not enough time to breathe with tense moments. Whenever stakes are established, they're quickly resolved in the next scene, so you don't really have enough time to feel it. It does detract from the film as a whole.
What it's aiming for, I think it does get it done, but it could have been so much more.
Yeah, all in all, there was just about like one action scene where it was handled in like one take, so I thought that was really cool. Other than that, again, the action just didn't really do it for me. I thought it was a lot of shaky cam, a lot of cuttiness. Never really any sequence that really had me on the edge of my seat, because, again, all the problems are solved rather quickly. The movie just didn't do much for me, and I hope it does for you if you go see it, but for me, this one didn't work, and that's my scatterbrained thoughts. Wow. I didn't expect to get this frustrated, this review.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
Damn, that is what it is. What about you now?
Yeah, this movie did not do anything for me. I will probably forget about this movie in the next month. I wish this movie could have done better. I mean, the acting, Gerard Butler and Mike Colter, I think they're fantastic. Not quite the bromance that I would hope for, but overall they bounce off each other very well. The rest of this movie is just very plain.
Yeah.
There's not much to go off on this movie. I wish I can go off on this movie, but it's just so bland that there's quite really not much to say about it.
It happened. It was a movie.
Yeah, it happened. It was a movie. All right. Cool.
Like and subscribe. And what'd you think of Plane?
Yeah.
I hope you liked it.